Get your threes up, friends. It's kind of like the fourth quarter where you put your fours up, but get your threes up. The final day of the draft is upon us, and we're here to get you ready for it. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Drew Dougherty. I'm your host with my good pal, John Harris, a sideline reporter, a Texans analyst, but really a guy who knows the draft better than just about anybody. You've been grinding on the tape year after year after year after year for as long as I've known you, and well before that. We've got a lot to get to, but first things first, you look bright-eyed, you look bushy-tailed, do you have your caffeine? What's going on? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I had a little caffeine this morning. Ready to go. Look, it's day 3. This is where general managers make their money. This is where you find, the 5th-round pick in DJ Reader. This is where you find a Geno Atkins. You find pick number 199. You got to get those players, and you find them on this day. So this is a big day for GMs across the league, including the one here in Houston, Nick Collins.
Yes, indeedy. All right, big day for you as well. Big day for Mark Vandermeer, the voice of the Houston Texans, going to be on the radio for yet again much time. And that's kind of a weird way to say things and introduce you, but nonetheless, I'm still waking up. How are you, Mark? What's going on?
Hey, I feel great. John Harris is Earl Campbell in this thing. We just hand him the ball, and he goes. And every pick, he's got something to say about. He does not need notes. He does not need to look anything up. He just goes. So you'll draft a guy like Nico Collins, and bam, Johnny's got all the information right there at his fingertips. You'll draft, obviously, Davis Mills. Johnny knew a whole lot about him. I mean, he's one of the top-flight quarterbacks in that second group. And boy, guys, when that second group started to go, they went. It was pretty quiet early on in the second round, but then the noise started to rev up.
Yeah, you bring up Davis Mills. Let's get into that. He was, for many people, both draft experts, fans alike, he was a surprise. Rich Eisen, I think he almost had a stroke on air. You okay, Rich? I mean, it was wild when he saw that Davis Mills was taken. And fans were like, what's going on here? Now, you can read a lot of different things into it, but at the end of the day, Nick Collins, when he was asked, talked about competition, wanting the best player available. What did you see when you saw that Davis Mills was taken?
The first thing that stood out when I watched Davis Mills was how comfortable he made me feel. As I'm watching him, he's just in control of everything. He stood at the line, and when you watch Stanford quarterbacks, I mean, obviously the first one you compare it to is Andrew Luck, and you just think back to watching the mannerisms and the different things, kill this play, we're changing to this guy's, we're doing all, he just has the same mannerisms as Andrew Luck. But then you watch him take his drop, throw. I mean, it's just very smooth, very fluid, very easy, and you feel really comfortable. And obviously there's intel on him with the connection to Pep Hamilton, who had been out there with David Shaw. So there's connections there. And especially for a quarterback, you want to get as much information as you possibly can. And so they had that information. But when you watch him, you get that kind of easy feeling of, all right, this guy doesn't get panicked. You don't see him just completely scrambling and running away from people. He'll stand in the pocket, deliver. He'll throw on the run if you need to. And he's not a pocket sloth. I mean, the guy ran in the 4.6 at his pro day. So he can get out of there, even though he's had some lower leg injuries in his career. Had he gone back to Stanford for 2021, I'm convinced with the quarterbacks that I know that are there right now, I'm convinced he probably, with a good just a solid year. He didn't have to be 5,000 yards and 80 touchdowns, a good solid year. I think he ends up going in the first round. So you just move that ahead a year. You get a first-round talent eventually in the third round, and you bring him to Houston and let him compete.
All right, in just a moment, we're going to hear from Mark Vandermeer more about that Pep Hamilton connection and what significance that has here now with this draft, with the Texans, with Mills, and so on and so forth. But we're going to go to the war room, and we're going to go to the call last night and find out what happened when Davis Mills heard from the Texans.
Great. Where are you at? Nice. Pretty quiet? All right. Okay, great. All right, we're gonna turn the pick in here in a minute, and we're gonna make you a Houston Texan. We're excited to have you. Like, you're a good player. You've had a good career at Stanford, and you're the type of person that we want to have in the building. So, we're excited. Enjoy it with your family. We'll circle back with you here in a little bit. Coach Cully is sitting right next to me here. He's going to get on the phone, so we'll visit with you here in a little bit. But congratulations,
David Cully, head football coach, Texans. How you doing? You should be. Hey, listen, love the thought of you being a Texan. I mean, we can't wait to get you here. I hear. Tell him I hear him in the background. I hear him. Yeah, tell him get him some boots now, okay? Hey, well, listen, looking forward to it. Congratulations. Happy for you. I couldn't be, as a first-time head coach, I couldn't be more happy for you.
All right, fun to see that phone call there, Texans with Davis Mills. But Mark, how about the connections thing? We've talked all about it throughout free agency. Guys who have played with David Culley, with Pep Hamilton, so on and so forth, with a lot of these assistant coaches too. There's definitely a connection, as we see with Mills and as we'll talk about in a minute with Collins. But what do you make of all that? It's a comfort factor, right?
Well, there's no doubt, because David Shaw, the head coach at Stanford, Drew, if he wanted to be a head coach in the NFL, when the market opens up following the season, he'd get a job in about 10 minutes. And he's on all this draft coverage year after year. You know how well he knows the National Football League. Davis Mills is a guy who played for him, obviously. Pep Hamilton was the offensive coordinator at Stanford once upon a time for Andrew Luck, and obviously went to the Colts, and then his journey continued from there. But the connection with David Shaw is so strong. And Nick Caserio told us on Texans radio prior to the draft that anecdotal type of information, stuff you can get from people you know who know the kid well, is so valuable, especially in a year without a combine. So they feel good about him. And look, it's third round action here, okay? So you're not saying, hey, day one, this guy's our starter or something like that. You drafted a quarterback, you're going to develop him, see how it goes. Sometimes it happens faster than others. We'll see how it all plays out. But they liked his talent. Johnny said maybe next year he'd be a first or second round pick, maybe one of the top flight quarterbacks to be taken in 2022 if he stayed in school. Only had 6 games last year. I think that it's a solid pick. Let's see where it takes us.
Yeah, good point there by Mark. But what is the development? What does he need to do before we see him on the field on Sundays? Now, I know there's a lot of different ifs and buts and what happens as far as injuries and whatnot, but all things being equal, knowing who's on this roster, what needs to happen for him to get on the field?
First thing he needs to do, we talked about this last night on radio, first thing he needs to do, once he got off the phone, he needs to call this offensive staff, send me the playbook. And before he sets foot in this building, understand every protection, every route, every play. 500 pages, I don't care how long it is. Understand everything about that. Digest it, know it as well as you possibly can. And then when you get here, you latch on to any receivers that will throw with you. You latch on to Tyrod Taylor, and you learn from him. Think of the quarterbacks that have learned at the side of Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert last year with the Chargers. Those are the things that you've got to be able to pick up. And then when you get on the field, understand that the pace is going to pick up from Pac-12 games. Maybe not at first because you're going against maybe the threes if you start with the threes, but the pace of the game is going to pick up. So you've got to pick everything up. Everything you do has to be done at a much more rapid rate. And then you move to the twos, you move to the ones eventually. And then, of course, you're at the NFL level where the pace of the game is 8 times, 10 times what it is in college. But just being able to adapt to that. Well, I think Davis Mills is the type of guy that can adapt to that. Just when you watch him, watching a highlight package, I got that same feeling. I mean, just how easy he throws the ball. The acumen, when people talk about throwing, they talk about how strong a guy's arm is or how weak a guy's arm is. But if you honestly talk about a guy's arm, you talk about his acumen. Does he know what type of throw to make? Does this one have to be a touch throw? Does this one have to be rifled? I think he can do all of those things. He is extremely talented from that aspect. I don't think he's got a Josh Allen or Justin Herbert type arm, but he can make every single throw, and he knows every single type of throw to make. This was the number 1 high school quarterback in the country a few years ago. So he is wildly talented from that perspective. He just started, 11 or 12 games at Stanford. So, like I said, had he gone back for another 12, 13 games at Stanford, now you're talking about a 2.5 year starter that just put together a 3,700-yard, 30-touchdown season with all the measures you look for an NFL quarterback in a year in which you don't have those 5 quarterbacks that we had in this draft. I'm pretty convinced he would have been at least a top 40 pick in next year's draft. You just get that a year earlier, and you get a talented guy that you can come in here willing to learn, willing to be the guy. And that was one other thing I felt about him, was that he was not going to be panicked or scared to step into a huddle with a bunch of grown men and say, all right, boys, it's on me. Let's go. I get that feeling from him that he's just not going to be rattled by anything, and people will follow his lead.
And, in a lot of ways, what John just said, Mark, is, hey, he's not going to get panicked. He's not going to get bullied into this. In a lot of ways, that can kind of apply to what Nick Caserio did. Because of all the moves in free agency and everything he's done, he kind of had the flexibility to just take who he wanted. He didn't have to get this guy at this position. There was a little bit of flexibility, right, Mark?
Fortune favors the bold, right? And this was a pretty bold move right there at the top of the third round to take him and then move back into the third round, making that trade for the acquisition of Nico Collins. Look, I thought that, with Davis Mills, is it a developmental thing? Is he a project? We don't know until he gets into the building, like Johnny said. But he does have a lot of ability, no question. And what he told us on the air last night, he said, I'm a winner. I want to win. And I think that is so important, the psychology of it all, in addition to the physical talents. And then I like that the Texans made 2 picks last night, because when you don't have a first or second rounder, you got to do something. You had 8 picks to work with, and work with them they did.
Yes, they did. And let's talk about that 89th pick. It was Nico Collins from Michigan. And here is video of the call he got from the Houston Texans.
What's going on, man? How you doing? I'm good, man. How are you? You're with your family. Good. You should be excited, man. Hell yeah. Where are you? No, you're in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, great. Yeah, we're just about to turn you in with our pick. Look, we're excited to have you here, man. Like, just spend some time with your family. Like, come in here, work hard. You don't need to do anything extra. Just come in and just do the things that you've done over your career, and that's all we're going to ask of you. Okay? So, let me hand you to Coach Cully here, and he'll say hello to you, and then we'll reconvene and get back to you. All right? Thanks.
You know what? Hey, and look, we want to put you a part of something special here also. We're so happy for you and happy for us, okay? Can't wait to get you here, all right? Hey, a Houston Texan. That sounds great, don't it?
Choice in the third round, 89th overall. Texans moved some picks, a pair of fourth rounders, one this year, one next year. But the one next year is not the Texans. Well, it is, but it was originally the Los Angeles Rams that came to Houston in the Brandon Cooks trade, and they also moved a 5th. So what do you make of Nico Collins? Big body, maybe a little bit of rust, like you mentioned when you saw him at the Senior Bowl, but there was enough rust knocked off that week that he impressed some folks. And again, there's another connection. Another Pep Hamilton connection. He was there at Michigan while Nico was developing as a young player, as well as Ben McDaniels, one of the assistants here now as an assistant wide receivers coach.
That absolutely helps. I mean, we mentioned Davis Mills in the connection with Pep Hamilton, David Shaw, but this is one in which Nico played directly for Pep Hamilton at University of Michigan. 6'4 plus, 6'4 and a quarter, 215 pounds, runs in the 4.4 range. And you hear those numbers sometimes, and there were a couple of players I know in this draft that, man, that guy ran a 4.5, really? Because on the field he plays like he's 4.8 or 4.9. Like you don't see the go-go juice. You see it with Nico Collins. And last night, after this happened, we're in a break. I go to my Surface and I pull up Notre Dame, Michigan from 2019. They isolate Nico on the backside of a play and just flat out runs by a corner. Like no shake, no, double move, just ran right by him. Safety's got to come over. Quarterback throws it deep. It's an accurate throw, which is typical of his time in Michigan. Gets a DPI. 15 yards, away you go. If that's in the NFL, that's a 35-yard gain. It's as good as a reception. He's a deep threat. He averaged over 19 yards a catch in 2019. He opted out in 2020, and we've talked about this a lot. With opt-out guys, it was going to be a case-by-case basis. Anybody in the Big Ten that opted out, I don't want to say I gave him a discount in some sense, but the way the Big Ten handled it was just poor.
Yeah. And
Nico went to the Senior Bowl. There was some rust. I thought the first day in particular, there was like, okay, I was really excited to see him because we hadn't seen him. And there was some rust, but he started to kind of shake it off a little bit. And throughout the week, I thought he got better and better. He came out of there with some pretty rave reviews from the Senior Bowl, and I loved seeing him up close. He's big now. You hear 6'4", 215, you're like, okay, how big is that? He's big. That's a big dude that can go get it down the field.
Strong, too. He put up 225 14 times in the bench. But, Mark, it's really interesting. He was ready to start and play this season. He was excited about his senior year. He was practicing, and then in August, the Big Ten decides, hey, we're not going to play football. So he made the decision, I'm out, too. I'm just going to get ready for the draft. Yeah. Well, then a month later, they come back and say they're going to play, and the train had already gone down that track in his mind, so he stayed out. and trained. It's been a wild journey for him. So from Ann Arbor to Mobile, Pensacola in between, and now he's coming to Houston. But what do you make of the physicality there at the receiver spot, adding Collins to the room you have right now? There's going to be 10 receivers. Right now there's 10 receivers. You might add more throughout the day here, but 10 wide receivers on the roster for the Texans.
Well, they're going to need more quarterbacks, right, to throw passes to all these receivers and tight ends and backs that they have. Look, they've got volume. We know that. We've been saying that through free agency. And now you add Nico Collins to this receiver room. And I think that with all the guys you have, the pressure's on, but it's not on to the point where Nico Collins has to start day one. Same thing we said about Davis Mills, right? You have guys you can play. The team has some depth here. And Johnny talked about his physical traits, and he's a high point catcher when he needs to be. Look, in the NFL, you got to run precise, crisp routes. No question about that. I'm sure they vetted him through the Pep Hamilton pipeline, if you will, just like they did with Davis Mills, and other information that they can get on this player. But look at it's the old Johnny thing. Put the tape on, bro, and then see what he looks like. You just saw the highlights. This guy looks like an NFL receiver, and I think he's somebody to get excited about, but there's going to be a lot of competition. They want competition. They got it. Plenty of it in that receiver room.
Okay, if Mark is using my gimmick, does that mean I get to use rock and roll and I get to use his? Nico Collins, rock and roll.
Yeah,
he's telling people to put the film on. I'm going to tell people to rock and roll.
He's going to get pretty protective of that. You got to be careful. All right. Okay. What do the Texans have today? Well, they still have 5 picks. They've got a 5th rounder, so they're going to sit things out in the 4th after dealing that to Carolina. But then they have 3 6ths. None of them are their original 6th round pick. You've got one at 195 from the Patriots. You've got a 203 from the Dolphins, and then a 212th overall pick from the Saints. That was part of a deal you made last year on the 3rd day of the draft. And then your final pick is the Bengals, and that was the 233rd pick, or is the 233rd pick. Nick Caserio talked about it last night. Yeah, there's maneuverability if we want to move up or move down as far as trades go, but he seemed to kind of poo-poo it.
Yeah.
In general, he didn't close the door. He left it open, but if you kind of read the tea leaves, sounds like he's just going to pick players today, not going to make many deals, but hey, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, you get a call from somebody that gives you a deal that's too good to pass up. You're not gonna pass it up. There's no doubt. I mean, I think Nick's proved that. He moved 20 spots last night to get back in the 3rd round, and it was funny. Where Mark and I were doing the show last night, there were some people that were like, "Okay, we're done. You know, drafted Davis Mills. You know, okay, it's Friday night. We're gonna go. You know, we're gonna go get a cold one, and away we go." And then, oh, there's been a trade. Okay. I just had a feeling that they were going to go get another player on Friday night. So when I look at what is coming and what's there, the one thing I noticed on my Harris 100 is a lot of defensive linemen. There were not very many defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, that came off the board. So I think there will be a definite run in interior defensive linemen. There have only been 5 running backs to come off the board, if my math is correct, too. So there's a bunch of those guys, and I think there's a ton of value, day 3 value in these running backs. So I think that's where there'll be 2 positions. I don't know if the Texans will go there, but that's where it feels like there's a bunch of depth. And there's still depth at wide receiver. If you wanted to look for a wide receiver that's maybe a little different than Nico, that maybe he's got some slot capabilities, maybe he's kind of a weapon X sort of guy that can play in the slot, maybe running back a little bit, return, kind of does a potpourri of things, if you will. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go. But there's still some depth at some key positions out there on day 3. They're going to be able to find, I think, a pretty solid player.
All right, Mark, Texans take a quarterback. The Texans take a wide receiver. There are some folks out there in the Twitter sphere that are like, what about the defense? Where's the defense? Are you one of those folks? Is that what you're wanting today? What do you see going down with these final 5 picks, Mark?
Well, I'd be shocked if the majority of these picks, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, were not defensive players. But I think we forget sometimes how many players they signed. And no matter what your situation is, you cannot answer all your questions, address all your problems in one draft. This is just the draft. I hate to say just the draft because it's a big deal, but you'll have undrafted free agents. You have whoever you take today. I think, look, I predicted 2 trades, so I'm going to hold to that. I think something else will go down today. Now, look, you're in 4, 5, 6, 7. You don't have a 4th round pick right now. I'm not expecting a blockbuster, but I'd be surprised if there's not some kind of movement today with the picks they have left.
That's right. Mark Vandermeer went with the over that was set at 1.5 as far as trades by the Texans in this draft. So Mark is sticking to his guns. I I respect that. I value that. Mark, we respect and value you. Thanks so much for coming on. Can't wait to listen to you throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the months and years to come here on Texans Radio. You're the best, man.
Thanks, guys.
We want to remind folks, too, about the Draftathon. Go to NFL.com/Draftathon. It's just this multi-pronged effort by the league, by a lot of its players, celebrities, former players, just trying to raise awareness about many worthy causes, whether it's food disparities, bridging the digital divide, and a whole lot more. So go visit the NFL.com/Draftathon and check that out. But as a reminder, a 5th, 3/6, and a 7th for the Texans today. And last night they moved back up and go at 89th overall. There have been 2 Hall of Famers taken 89th overall in NFL draft history. I know you know them, don't you? Or am I stumping you?
It's got to be a kicker, right?
Nope. Paul Krause, the all-time
Oh, yeah.
interceptions leader, played his career with the Vikings.
Yes.
And then a guy that David Culley has a pretty intimate knowledge of was an assistant coach with the Eagles, Terrell Owens. So, and Nico Collins,
very
he's a
nice.
receiver. So I'm not saying he's going to be Terrell Owens or he's Paul Krause, but
But that's a pretty good comparison,
It's a
though,
pretty-
from just a stylistic standpoint.
you like that? Okay, I'll take T.O.
Nice.
Take it. All right, we appreciate you watching. So many people put this great show together, and we appreciate all of them. Tyler Marcotte, Mitchell Moreland, Nicholas Patterson, Connor Sangera, as well as Amanda Caffey, Einav Leibowitz, Ryan Records. I could go on and on and on. Caroline Jordan, Stephen Friedlander. We appreciate all you watching. Greg Grissom. And we can't wait to do this again. Make sure you check out Texans 360 tonight. Not going to be draft coverage, but it's still going to be awesome. And then tomorrow night on ABC 13 KTRK after the local news, we've got the draft special. You'll hear from the GM. You'll hear from the players. It's going to be cool. We're going to break it all down. It's the best place to be. In between now and then, listen to him on Sports Radio 610 and the Houston Texans mobile app. And hey, if you want to come out and see a game next fall, get tickets. HoustonTexans.com/tickets. Experience the action. Experience game day. Experience the family. Experience game day together. I'm going to say experience again and again and again because that's the way to do it. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. And until then, go Texans.